Hello guys, it's me Butterfly Spirit 314. So guys, in today's video, I'm going to talk about whether or not men should pay on dates. Now, I am going to say, looking at my yard right here, I definitely got to cut this yard because it is wild and crazy. So I'm going to get this under control because it's been a month since I cut this grass. So let's get back to the topic at hand. Okay, other than making it about me cutting my grass. All right, guys. So, should men pay on dates? So, there are a lot of dating coaches that say that men should pay on dates, because the man should pay because he's asking the woman out on a date. I'm of the perspective, this is my own perspective. I think when it comes to women going on dates, I think if a woman's going on the first date, it's nothing wrong with a man paying. For me personally, I feel like it's important for me if I'm going on a date with a guy. I feel like it's all right for me to cover my half of the date or whatever. Because when I show up to the date or whatever, I want the guy to know that I'm really there to get to know him, and to kind of see if we really have a connection or anything like that, and stuff. That's what I'm really would be meeting the guy to do. I'm not there to, splurge and buy the most expensive stuff or whatever. And the thing we got to think about when it comes to the first date here is this may be the first time, ladies, that you and a guy are meeting, or gentlemen, the first time you and a lady are meeting. Okay. And what happens on the first date can really set the stage for what's going to happen down the line. Okay. So I want to first talk to the ladies here. So when it comes down to it, right? Ladies, on the first date, we get dressed up, we may get our nails done, hair done, or whatever. We show up to this date with a guy. If we show up to the date with the perspective that a guy should pay for the date, right? That's okay, right? For him to be a gentleman and cover the meal. That's fine. But the thing is that what we have to be careful of is we have to be careful about the fact of allowing a man to continue to pay for everything. Because if a man is covering the first date and he's covering every other thing for you, down the line, let's say you move in with the guy or whatever, right? And let's say he's covering bills, rent, all this stuff, right? And he's making all these financial decisions. What happens if one day you have an argument with the guy that you moved in with, right? And he had been covering everything for you or whatever. And you were insistent, oh, you have to pay for this for me because you're in a relationship with me or whatever, okay? Well, what happens if one day you come home and then what happens if he's gone? Then what do you do? When he's gone and he's not there to pay for the bills and rent and put food in the fridge and all that, and because he got tired of always having to make the decisions financially, and maybe if he tried to include you, you're like, oh no, that's not for me, you handle it, you take care of it. Well, ladies, that puts us at a disadvantage, because if we're not a part of the financial discussions, I'd say from the at least the very beginning, how can we really show up and be a part of a team in a relationship? Because nobody's going to be able to 100% all the time be able to cover stuff on their own. Because if a person is covering stuff by themselves, they might as well just be by themselves, if they just doing everything on their own. And what would we really be adding, ladies, if we're just there and we're just expecting a man to buy stuff or whatever, but we're not contributing something? At least if we're in a relationship, it's cool to, maybe you may not be working full time. Maybe you might be working part time. But, offering to kind of chip in and offering your ideas or whatever can be helpful. It certainly can be, because at least you're showing up and you're being there and you're being a part of a team, because just because a man is there, it doesn't mean that, that he can handle everything. You don't want him to get exhausted in a relationship and feel like, he's taking care of you like he's your parent or something like that. You guys will be two adults, in a relationship. And I will say, ladies, hey, maybe if the guy's paying for things and maybe he's insistent about paying for everything, one thing we can be grateful to the man paying for things for us. And yes, I would say, offer to pay for things too. Offer to do that because, you know, he might be running a little short. He may not tell you, but he may be, what I'm saying, with him paying for different things. He may want you to chip in, but maybe, he may not ask you. He may be afraid of what you're going to think of him you know, if you, if he does ask you, you know. Now, gentlemen, right? If you are going and you're paying for dates for a woman, that is wonderful. It is great for you to be a gentleman, everything, and pay for dates. That's fine if you want to. If you're the type of guy where you say, you want to pay for your half and she pays for her half just to see where things go, you can do that. you know why? Because you may want to find out if she's just there, if she's just there for you to just buy her a bunch of stuff. Because if you're paying for her meal, there's no guarantee she's genuinely there for you. She may not be there for you. She might be getting a free meal, but then she might be dating somebody else, but she's just there, what I'm saying, to get some food because maybe the person she's with don't want to buy her nothing. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe they can't afford to do it. You know, she could be bored. You know what I'm saying? You don't know. Or she could be, in a relationship and maybe she's trying to make the person she's in a relationship jealous by, letting them know, oh, see, look, this guy invited me on a date. He's buying me all this stuff or whatever to make the person she's with feel bad. You know what I'm saying? And so you really never truly know where a woman could be coming from. You know what I mean? And so if on the first date, if you're like, hey, I'm cool with paying for it, but, next time we go out, maybe we can split this bill or whatever and stuff. And why would you split the bill? You split the bill because you get to know financially about what her motivations really are. And if she's going to just expect you to buy a bunch of stuff and not contribute anything. You get what I'm saying? Because I get how women may feel that, you know, we grow up, ladies, and we want to be, treated. We want a gentleman. We want a man that's going to treat us with dignity and respect and things and cover things for us. That's fine. But we have the ability to work jobs now. You know what I mean? Now, if a woman has a disability, that's a different thing. You know what I'm saying? But these days, most women are working full-time jobs. We make paychecks. We're no longer restricted to being in a house anymore and stuff. And, if we go out, we have to have a chaperone. It's no longer like that anymore. You know what I'm saying? We have freedoms to do things. You know what I'm saying? We have the freedoms to be able to make decisions on our own instead of having family make decisions for us. You get what I'm saying? And so the thing of it is that, ladies, we have the ability to contribute. You know what I mean? If you work part-time and let's say you tell a guy, let's say you had to pay a bill or something like that. You know what I mean? And you can't go half. You say, hey, well, I can't pay half on this date or whatever. Hey, let's hold off on going on a date until I can cover my half, because you covered the last, 3 dates or something. That can be very responsible, what I'm saying, to show up that way, because like I said, how dating starts off in a relationship, that can really, set the tone for how the rest of the relationship goes. Now, gentlemen, it's fine for you to cover things, but it's also important for a woman to feel that she can actually pay for things as well. Because the thing of it is that, if she is willing to invest with you, she can build with you. Maybe she can't pay on the first date. That's fine. But if she offers to pay on the second date and she offers to, like maybe pay her half on the second date and maybe on other activities, she offers to pay half and things like that, that really starts to show that she's really genuinely interested in investing in a relationship with you. And she wants to build something with you. You know what I mean? And it actually shows that. Now some women, they're raised with this mentality that they don't have to contribute, and they may not know. Doesn't mean they don't want to build, but they may not be sure because they may be afraid of what people are going to think. But the thing of it is it's about, relationships are about investing in each other and building with each other. And not every person you meet is going to be right for you. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's the timing, that could be a big factor. Sometimes you meet a person at the wrong time in your life. Or sometimes you meet a person at a certain time in your life and then maybe it doesn't work out, but maybe later on down the line, after you have grown and had other experiences and stuff in life, maybe one day you can come back and maybe you and that person will meet again. you know the thing is, though, is that I feel like for women, it really puts us as a disadvantage, if we're setting ourselves up to be financially dependent on a man, because there's no guarantee that that man is going to stay in our lives, especially if we get so used to him buying stuff that we don't appreciate him, you know or it gets to a point where you know like with that criticism, let's say he decides, well, if I'm doing all this stuff or whatever and she doesn't appreciate me, I might as well just be go off on my own way or whatever, and find someone else. There's no guarantee financially that a man has to invest in you or be there for you or anything if you yourself are not willing to appreciate him and contribute to a relationship. Because even if a person's not working, you know what I'm saying, they can still contribute in a relationship. This is something that I feel like I have learned, that it's not always about the money. You know what I'm saying? It's not always that. That's something I could say definitely, am coming to learn, you know. But I just think that I really feel like the information I hear about, women assuming men are going to pay for dates and stuff, I really feel like, it really puts people in a bad situation because, what if a person gets in a relationship with somebody, you know, a woman gets in a relationship with a guy, she moves across the country or something like that, she's living with a guy and stuff like that. You never really know what a person's motivation is if they're paying for stuff for you. Not everybody's good. There are some toxic people out there. There's some abusive people out there. You know what I mean? And for them, if they, and people of different cultures too, you know, and they're of different belief systems. So, some men may feel like if they pay for a woman to do something, they may feel like they now own her. You know what I'm saying? So there's things like that, depending on people's belief system and where they come from in the world and all that stuff. This is one of the reasons why I feel like it's important to really talk about and really clarify things as far as dating is concerned, before you go out on a date or whatever, or if you're on a date, talking about it and stuff to get a full understanding. Because ladies, if you have a man that, you're just expecting a man to buy you whatever, and he's from another culture where he feels like once he buys something for you, then he owns you and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And he from some other place and he ain't from the same, he's let's say he paying for a date, and let's say he from some other country and stuff, and once he feel like, okay, I bought her or whatever, and you don't know that, you think, oh, he just from here. Well, that may not be the case. You know what I'm saying? You never know. You never know. Don't assume a man believes the same stuff that you do, because he may not be from the same place as you. He may not be of the same belief system, be raised in the same country as you. Because some men may buy you and they might be traffickers and shit like that. They may be trying to traffic you with some kind of shit. You know what I'm saying? Just because they pay for a date for you. You know what I'm saying? There's some women who've gone on dates and stuff and went back to a guy's place and stuff like that, and they never seen again. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing too. You know what I'm saying? But it's really important that we really had these conversations about what we're setting ourselves up for. You know what I'm saying? Because if we really want to have a productive relationship, it's really about really kind of ironing things out. You ain't got to start in heavy at the beginning, but it's about really thinking about how you show up in a relationship, and don't just expect somebody to take care of you, because what about when that person's not around? What if you ladies, if you're in a relationship with a gentleman and let's say he gets sick, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, and what if you have to take on the financial responsibilities, but you're so used to him doing it? It can be a hardship for you if you're not, used to working or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And on top of that, if you're having to contribute financially by yourself, that could be a strain. You know what I'm saying? Gentlemen, the same thing. You could be in a relationship with a lady, and let's say something happens, and let's say, your girlfriend gets sick or something, or let's say she ends up getting pregnant or something like that. That's going to be a lot more money. Things can happen these days. And I think the more we start to talk about things like money and be more aware of it, and both people be vested in it, the more likely we are to, not let money be that much of a hurdle. And it's also important for us to think about our insecurities about money too. You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't have a good relationship with money and be honest with ourselves about it, that can become a source of headache in that relationship. Where we're lashing out another person, we can say it's because of money, but really it's because of an insecurity that we may have. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye.